Hey there, guys. This is Malorian, and this will be another Paintisode. It's late today. It's 2 hours later than normal because I was doing demos. My cousin come over, and I ran him through a couple of demo games, and we'll see if he picks it up. But either way, the whole idea here with these Paintisodes is that I'll be doing this for about an hour. You're supposed to be grabbing out your things that you want to paint. I'll be painting too. And at the end, I'll be yapping about some stuff, and we'll have some painted models. So today, what I'll be painting is Centurion number 3. I actually own 6 Centurions. The store had a big blowout sale a while back where they were selling a bunch of the old ones, and I picked up some new ones on a good discount too. So if I ever want to run that 6 Centurion list, I can do it. And I've never run that many. I think the most I've ever ran was 3. But I think once I have them painted, that's going to be a fun little janky, grindy list to paint. But also drinking some Zambuca. We'll see. My throat's been a lot better, so I think I'm in the clear. But yeah, I have a bunch of questions to answer from what you guys left from last time, or my video I put up asking for questions. And then who knows? This is a weird time for me to be doing this, where probably if you live in the middle of the ocean, this is a good timing for you. But otherwise, hey, I might have some people join me, and I'll answer their questions too. That's Sambuca. So, when I talk about the demo, before I get to the questions, I'll talk about the demo game first. Of course, a great way to learn the game is with the demo boxes. So, the 2 that I use is I use the Signar ones. So you got Striker, Ironclad, Lancer, and the Charger. And I like to pit that one up against the Mercenary one. So that one, it has P. Magnus, it has a Mangler, it has Talon, and also has a Renegade. And so not only is there like a fluff background you can add there, but the looks are pretty much stable and okay. I mean, if you ever were to mix in something like the Retribution, you have to be worried that maybe somebody really doesn't like that look, but the looks there are pretty safe and neutral, and the way that they play and interact, I feel is pretty even. So I like running those. We did 2 games. First one, no scenario. The second one, we did a little simple, oh, there's a coffin, King of the Hill type thing. And yeah, you know, he really has no experience with the tabletop wargaming going into this, which was pretty unique. Normally, when I run the demo, somebody has played 40K or fantasy or something, but not today. Today, it was brand up new. Like he's a gamer, but he's more of a computer gamer. So he plays like WoW, and he's really into board games and stuff like that. But for miniatures, this was his first time at it. And, you know, you could tell that he liked it. I don't think that he's, you know, addicted like I am or anything like that. But I think he'll be playing again. And, you know, will he be picking up his own army? Really depends if, you know, he decides to take the next step and how much I support it too. I mean, that's really the second part of demo games. I mean, the first part is to get them in there, do those initial demo games so that they understand the rules, and then you need that next step where you know, start inviting them out to more games. The demo boxes are nice, but it's not really what the game is, right, guys? It's more just teaching you the rules, and then all of a sudden you need all the infantry in there and the solos. So have to see if he'll be able to come out here. I mean, one of the nice things that works out well is that the wife comes out here every single Monday to be playing, or not playing, to be doing a class with my wife. So, sorry, his wife comes here to do a class with my wife, because my wife does this whole mixed media thing, right? So she has all these people coming over. One of them there is the other lady, the other wife. And so we're just kind of thinking like, man, well, she's here. Normally he's at home with nothing to do other than WoW. You know, why doesn't he come here and he could be doing War Machine with me? So we'll have to kind of see how that picks up, what that could mean. And, you know, I was kind of been wondering this for a while, whether I should be doing my Paintisodes on a separate day, because even now that I do this 2 hours later, they're still up there. They haven't gone left, and they can hear me through the vent. So I got to watch what I say, and I got to worry, too, that I'm not ruining my wife's class, right, by me freaking out and talking about whatever. But especially if he's going to be coming here, And we're going to be doing, well, demo games at first and then real games. Oh, just stab myself. Stupid little tip. I didn't bend it, did I? No. Then maybe I want to be doing my Paintisodes on a different day. So we'll see how that goes, though. I mean, I could go and I could do a poll and see what works for who, but out of the, you know, the few hundred people who watch this, it's going to be kind of hard to find something that works for everything. So I've been doing it for Mondays for a while now. I mean, I've been doing a lot of Paintisodes. It'd be interesting to know, you know, the number of models that are painted out there just because of these Paintisodes. But anyway, you guys asked some questions. You probably don't want to just hear me rambling on about demo games. So let's get to those. So the first one comes from Chance Encounter, and it says, what are your recommendations for transporting armies, be it foam, tray, or other? Well, what I use is, I think I showed that before. Totally gonna knock my stuff over. GW cases. So what I'll use is sometimes if the army is small enough, I'll just use the GW case. Because, man, I have lots of GW cases from all my days with Fantasy and 40K. I mean, I literally have like 4 empty large cases there that I might as well be using for War Machine now, right? I feel that for the most part they fit the War Machine models just fine, and I mean, why not use them? However, you'll find that most of the times you have larger models that don't really fit in that well. So what I'll do instead is I'll take the foams from the GW cases. I have a lot of ones here where over the years I've cut them to be different sizes, and then what I'll do is, of course, the trays on the bottom, I'll use those for the infantry. And then on top, you know, I'll eventually work up to where at the top, maybe that's where my cav is, or my beasts, or my jacks, or, you know, it really depends on the army. But basically, it's all on like a cookie tray, and then all these foams are on top. And then that way, I can hold a lot more models. It's still very convenient to move around. If I want, I can take all the models out of the foams, put them on the cookie tray. I mean, really, you can take that next step and make an actual display board. I just haven't done that. I mean, I have my old display board from Fantasy, but that's massive. I mean, it would not make sense for War Machine whatsoever. Silver, silver, silver. But, yeah, so, I mean, that works out well there, too. And then, of course, the next level is you have your Colossals, and they just don't really fit there whatsoever. So I'm using a shoebox. You know, I see some guys, they have these massive foams that are actually big enough to hold the Colossals. I don't think that's really worth it financially or the space-wise it takes up. I mean, all I use is a freaking shoebox. That's all I use. And then I can have one Colossal facing one way. Then I have my little like tray of tokens in there. If I'm running 2 Colossals, I have a piece of foam I put between them. And, I mean, hell, that works well enough for me. I don't need to be spending lots of money to get specific foams that can only handle one thing. And that's good enough, right? And I mean, nobody really shames you or anything, right? I mean, it's not like I walk into the tournament like, oh, there's Malorian with his shoebox, right? Like, nobody cares that I'm using a shoebox for that stuff. So that's what I use, mainly GW stuff, and then when needed, cookie trays and shoeboxes and really whatever I need. Man, I mean, hell, for the longest time, the tokens I used were actually just from a bingo set. But to be fair, I was running my Thagrosh 2 Shredder Spam, so you needed a lot of focus, way more than... I mean, either I could buy 3 token sets, or I could be using a bingo set to have enough fury for a bajillion shredders. And by the way, I'm not thinking at all that I'm going to get done the Centurion today. If I was done all the silver first, then maybe I could have finished this in an hour. I'm really just hoping to get the silver on it all, maybe get a couple of the colors. That's really all I'm trying to do. All right, next question here. We have Terry Slade saying, given that you need to attend a big foreign event to get more experience for the WTC, how would you decide between SmogCon and the Welsh Masters? It would be really cool to go to Welsh Masters, but It's probably not going to be something in Europe. It's going to be something in down in the States. And you know what, guys? It is so ridiculous how expensive flights are here in Canada. One of my buddies, he is actually going to be moving to China, right? So Canada to China, we're like, pretty much, you stay in the Northern Hemisphere, opposite sides of the globe. Now, if I want to fly from Alberta to Newfoundland, you're looking at, depending on the time of year, lots of money, like over $1,000. It doesn't really matter what the number is, because when we were looking at what it costs, if I was to visit him in China, it was going to be $1,000 for, okay, 1,100, 1,200 for a round trip from Alberta to China. And I mean, how does that make any sense? It's just, I mean, really, I'm sure most people, they're like, yeah, that's totally whatever. But because the flights are so expensive here in Canada, man, it's just ridiculous. And so, anyway, going with those expensive travel amounts, it would be going for something more down in the States. I'm going to have to really try and see which one I can make work, because of how I really would like to go to Lochinlow. That would be my first choice. But unfortunately, that's the same time as my anniversary. And so far, I have not been able to convince my wife that, hey, going off to Seattle for our anniversary would be lots of fun. So unfortunately, I'm still trying to work out on that to see what would be the best way to go. I mean, price is going to be the biggest factor, of course, right? If I can find something that's somewhere around the $1,000 mark, that's going to be like what I'm going to be aiming for. And although a lot of people are telling me that, oh man, you can't just do one, you should be doing more, it's just one of those things where right now we're in a single income family. And I mean, me just deciding that I'm going to go to multiple long range foreign tournaments, it's a really hard sell. Now, one of the things that can make that easier is if you start doing some of these ones where you can carpool it, right? Where all of a sudden you're trading time instead and saying, you know what, we'll get a bunch of guys, we'll get inside a van, and we're just going to go and drive to wherever, right? That's kind of the idea, where we'd be going down to the Chain Attack guys at Idaho Falls and kind of like, take a bus full of Alberta guys and go down there and take them on. That's not a con, but man, would it still give you major, major experience. You're still facing top level players. It's not going to break the bank. And sure, it's just one event, but you'll be there doing the steamroller, and at the same time, you'd have gaming before or after. You'd be getting a lot out of it. So, I mean, I'm sure if we turn into a big event, maybe we could see if they'd want to do some other events as well, like a late nighter somewhere or something like that. I don't know. That would take a lot of organization, and that's still just an idea swirling in a lot of our heads here as something we'd like to do, but it's not like I've already contacted Trevor or Jay or Scott and started working out details. All I know is that thing where they have a tournament the first Saturday of every month, and knowing that, hey, we just got to show up sometime. And then, of course, there's always the worry that you go and show up for something like that, and all of a sudden they don't have enough tables, but I'm sure you can make things work. Got 4 viewers. That's pretty cool. I know it's pretty late, at least here. Who knows what time it is where you are. But yeah, guys, if you're watching, let me know what you wanted me to talk about. All right. Going on to the next question here. And it's now going to be from David Williams. And it's going to say, hello there, good sir. Oh, we're not getting the whole question. There it goes. So I got Sturgis tabletopped and played him against the Dark Prince. Lost the match, but learned a lot about him. Like teleporting 8 inches does not save you from charges. Well, depends what you're. Okay, we'll say maybe it depends. Really like the spells that come with him, and Dead on Arrival is pretty cool. Ran Sturgis over to one side and pulled everything towards him, allowing me to get some free strikes. Oh, you don't get free strikes from that there, because you only get free strikes when you're moving during your activation. So if you pull their models out from base to base or melee range with your own guys, that does not trigger free strikes. You see that with a lot of other things like spells like domination and stuff like that. But no, that there actually aren't no free. There are no free strikes triggered from that pull. Anyway, good addition to my P Striker and E Striker, which freaked my friends down at the local gaming store. Sturgis is very, very cool. He brings in some neat things to Signar. He's not completely unique. You know, a lot of his support spells are the same that you might see on P Striker or Kane 1 or Haley 1. You know, he has kind of like those same snipe and blur type spells and Arcane Shield, but he brings to it that melee assassination, and man, that pull, his feat does a lot of things. I mean, with Kane 1, you can say, oh, it's got silver all over me. That I'm going to jump up and I'm going to pop my feet and I'll take a shot against everything. But there's a lot of rolls, right? You got to roll against everything, and there's a lot of things where not only is there the uncertainty about whether you'll roll high enough to kill whatever troops you're shooting at with your P-Cane feet, it also just kills your death clock because you're taking all those shots. Now with the Sturgis feat, it's automatic. You will be pulled. I can set it up so that you will go into these covering fire templates, and then you just take your guys off. I mean, for the most part, unless you got some pretty decent armor for infantry, there's not really any roll really needed. If nothing else, I'm not needing to roll to hit. And so not only are you adding in, like I said, that assurance where it will be happening, but it also saves you a lot of clock. So that's really good. Of course, with his melee abilities there, that's pretty awesome that he can have that added in. It's nice to have a feat that can just take zealots off because, I mean, zealots can only be hurt by feat damage, and there's not very many feats out there that actually do direct damage. So that's nice to have. I don't know. Sturgis is fun. I like him a lot. Does he really get into my competitive mix? Not really, but he's really close. I feel like I feel like I'm just missing something, that he could very easily be not my number 1 list, but my number 2 list, right? Like, let's say if I'm running my number 1 list is a something double storm wall. So what I'm doing with that is I'm telling my opponent, you need to take a bunch of heavies in order to deal with my storm wall. Well, then I could then counter drop that with my Sturgis, kill off all the infantry with the feet, and then as well pull things in so that I can, you know, snipe Gorman shot a lot of them down, beat them up with the storm wall, set up with my lances or whatever other heavy I might have in the list. You know, it works very well in combination with that. I just feel that it doesn't really have all the tricks to deal with some of the other nasty things you might see there. So I don't know. I'm still working on it. Every single time, it's so weird. You know, whenever I run Sturgis, I think I'm actually undefeated with my Sturgis list. But for some reason, I just can't seem to bring it to a tournament. And I mean, maybe that's what I should do. I have a tournament this weekend, and I could bring Sturgis, but instead, I got other plans. You know, for example, I'm going to be going with Haley double Stormwall to deal with Radagast, but then instead of matching it with him, I'm instead matching it with Sons of the Tempest, and I'll be taking that list to a tournament for the first time. So we'll see how that does. It should do well. I got a bajillion gun mages. How do you go wrong? Probably where I'm going to go wrong is the fact that I haven't practiced it. That's my problem, is I don't get enough games in to practice these things before I take them to a steamroller. But what can you do? Either way, we are on to the next question, which comes from Rosh Figure Painting Co., which is, did you hear that the round base rumors for 9th will only be for certain characters and monsters? Rank and file plus existing figures will stay on squares, so no need to panic. 9th looks to be really exciting, and so many people are rooting for you to at least review the books when they come out. Man, you know, I think that might be something. Okay, here's the deal. When 9th comes out, I am very tempted to do a 9th edition review. You know, I'll buy the 9th edition, I'll read it, I'll do my big, huge, long, multi-hour review of the army book, or not the army, but the rule book, and cover, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, and all this stuff. My reservations against it is that my channel is clearly changing. And I don't want to lie to anybody and make them think at least that, oh boy, look at Malorian, he's coming back to fantasy, when really I'm going to be focusing in on War Machine still. So, I mean, I'm sure if I make a video that's like a review of the 9th edition book, I'll get thousands of hits, you know, lots of hits, and that's cool. I love that. But I'm also going to get a bunch of new subscribers. And although that sounds good, I would just feel bad that for all these people, they're like, oh boy, here comes Malorian, going to do a bunch of fantasy. And then if that doesn't happen, because either 9th just isn't my jazz, or I still just really like War Machine, that they're just going to get upset again. Like, oh man, Malorian's not doing anything at all. Blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. I mean, one of the things I would like to do instead is, I mean, why don't I do a combination with somebody else? I'll buy the 9th edition book, and then instead of doing it on my channel, which would then, you know, make people think that this is the place to go for fantasy, maybe I do it with Once Bitten. Maybe I do it with Anthony. Maybe we do one as a group, but it's hosted on their channel instead of mine. And that way nobody should be kind of, you know, tricked. Not that I am trying to trick anyone, it's just, that's just might be the way that they feel. Yeah, apart from the other stuff about have I heard about like some of the rumors are wrong or different, I did hear that. And now at this point, I mean, when you get to that point where you hear rumors, and this goes for War Machine too, where you hear a rumor and you're like, oh boy, talking about this rumor, and then you find out that there's a counter rumor saying that that stuff's completely wrong, it just really gets you out of it. Because, I mean, if you start learning that all the stuff that you've been focusing on and learning about is all lies, why would you be looking more into it? So really, I did hear that, and then as soon as I did, I was like, yeah, I'm not following any more rumors. So there you go. And we'll see what happens. Next one here from Advanced Maneuvers. They're asking, hey, can we get another Team Canada update? So I guess they didn't see my video where I talked about that, but really the update from Team Canada, or maybe they want something after that, was that I did not make the team. I made the top 20, but I did not make the top 10. So too bad, but you know, I did know that this year was a long shot. I really would like to make the team, but hey, I could see how I made some key. Okay, here's the biggest thing. It was really nice. The guy who was one of the guys who was part of the team walked me through after to kind of tell me how I went wrong or why I wasn't picked. And one of the big things that I didn't think there was going to be that big of a deal, I was kind of worried about it, but when we first applied to make the Team Canada, there were a lot of questions. I mean, I really thought that when you first did the application, it'd be really short and sweet, and then your interviews is where they'd really grind you. But instead, the initial application was page after page of long answer questions they wanted you to answer. And one of them was, what's the Crix meta in Europe? And I was like, I don't know. You know, I kind of asked a couple people. They weren't sure. I tried looking it up. I couldn't find anything. And so in the end, I just kind of gave the basic answer of, well, you know, being a Signar player, I basically know that I'm going to be the Signar counter, and so it really doesn't matter what the meta is in Europe, because my job is just to counter all of Crix. And, you know, really what it'll come down to is that when they post up the lists, then I'll start really focusing on what the list will be going to the WTC. But otherwise, I don't need to be really focused on what the European meta was. And I knew it was kind of a cop-out, and really that was the number one thing. You know, I thought it was going to be more the fact that I haven't gone to any big cons other than our local Grotscon. That was going to be the major strike against me, but apparently it was that question. That answer there where I didn't take the time to do the research to give a really more in-depth answer, that was the massive strike against me. Now, was it the only thing? I'm sure not, right? I mean, even if I would have answered that question perfectly, like I said in my last video where I reviewed it, the people who made the team are really, 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 really good. There's only one of the people on the team that I don't even know if it's a winning record against or a even record against, but yeah, everybody is really good and for the most part beat me. So the fact that they make the team and not me, it makes sense. I need to get more practice and better next year. So there's the update. Another interesting thing, which I don't know if it's supposed to be a secret or not, but I actually made the shadow team. So what they actually did is it's a really good idea, is to give, first of all, we have two teams in Canada. There's a Western team and an Eastern team, Moose and Goose. Now, for the Western team, I made the shadow Western team. Now, my whole job as basically the next 5 is we have now made our own team, and our whole job is to play against the main team, Moose, which is the Western one, to give them practice for how to do a team event. So multiple times between now and then, we're going to be playing against them to give them that practice against whatever list they need to play against. And then as well, I get the feeling that it's also done to really train us to kind of see what it's like if we would have made the team. So it's really cool because a lot of the guys that made the team for the shadow team, we're all local Edmonton guys. So whereas, you know, the ones in the actual team are spread out between BC and whatever, we're pretty much all just Edmonton. So it'll be really neat to get together and do this, and should be a lot of fun. So if nothing else, I mean, another thing I don't know if I can do too is I don't know when we have these games between the shadow team and Team Moose, whether I can actually put battle reports from those, because really some of the stuff might be secret information, right? I mean, that's one of the negatives of me having a channel, is that if I come on here and I say, oh yeah, I played against Gord Wepler, and this is his list that he's planning to take. You know, it's not released yet, but this is what I did. You know, clearly that's giving out information. Or if nothing else, even if the lists are out there, if I'm playing against him and then showing all these ways he played, it's information I'm giving to other people. So I don't know if they'll allow it. Maybe it'll be a thing where I'll have to take all the pictures, and then after the WTC, then there'll just be like a wave. There'll be like a wave of like 20 battle reports. So we'll have to see which way they're okay with that. They might just not care, right? Like, whatever. Put out the battle reports. Team Canada is not one of the favorites to win the WTC anyway, so we'll see. All right, moving on. We have one from Flame Knight Dragon. And by the way, where I'm with painting so far, we're silver. So, silver. Can you tell me about Grotscon? A few of us here in Victoria, BC. Ooh, I'm wondering if you're part of the, oh man, what's that group called? You might know some of my friends there, like Dan Bilecki and stuff. Anyway, a few of us here in Victoria, BC want to make a trip over for it, but don't know a ton about it. How many people take part? What events do they run for War Machine? Anything else you can tell us would help make this decision. Thanks. So it is in April. Really, if you just Google Grotscon 2015, maybe add in Red Deer, because that's where it is. It's in Red Deer, Alberta. The Grots, that's the group, put it on. They've been doing it for a few years, and every year it's getting bigger and bigger. And especially since this year we stole the Mayhem Cup and brought it up, and it's going to be at Grotscon. Yeah, it's going to be pretty crazy. So it's going to be a 3-day event. There is going to be a lot of events ran, of course. I mean, one of them is going to be the Alberta Invitational. So from all of our tournaments, those who made it in will be going to this tournament. There'll be a regular Masters. There'll be the one going on for the Mayhem Cup. You know, there's a lot of events going on. Of course, there's all the late night ones, like a Who's the Boss and stuff like this. So, wow, like there's just a lot of stuff. It's like a con. It's like a big con. How many people do we expect to see there? I think they're targeting to get 80. We'll see how many we get, but I mean, especially with the Mayhem Cup and all the rest of it, it should be really, really good. And of course, if you've seen our Team Canada things, the zones where they have like it's like a juggernaut from Kador, but it's a moose and there's a goose on top. You know, we have that, our logo, that'll be on those, will be sold at the event, so that's really cool. There'll be fundraising for the Team Canada. So yeah, I mean, if you want to come on down. I would offer to share lodging here at my house, but I'm in Edmonton. It'd be really cool if you want to come down, Irish Skills. We'll make sure we'll be at the same hotel. We can get some games up against each other. But, yeah, it's going to be lots and lots of fun. And really the best thing you can do is – maybe what I can do is when I actually put this up and upload it, I'll put a link to where all the information is for Grotscon because that's where it all is. So, I mean – as far as all I know, they might be adding events, so I don't want to really go and say, like, this is exactly what's happening because they may still be adding stuff. But just know that there'll be lots of events. It's a 3-day tournament where I'm sure each day there must be 3 different tournaments going on between, like, a major one, a backup one, and then a late-night one. You know, it's going to be a very awesome time. So if you can make it to Grotscon, come on down. Next one from Lord17C. I have been searching for a War Machine faction to play when I don't feel up to playing Trolls. And I understand that. Trolls is a really grindy army for the most type. And it can be exhausting, right? If you play game after game where it's a slow grind, you just want something that's different. So I understand this. Do you feel Crix would be a good choice as it's so different? And what do you think of the Crix army in a box they have out? So, first of all, Crix would be interesting because instead of doing the whole Horde's Fury mechanic, you're doing the focus mechanics. That could do that different for you. You don't have to worry about balancing your Fury. It's just all there. You don't have to, whereas with Trolls, you're always bumping over each other with all the medium and large bases. Crix is all the small bases, so that'll be different for you. Whereas usually the Trolls are like the slow grind. Usually the Crix are just like blah in your face and kill stuff. And usually as well for the Crix, it's typically a faster game, right? The Crix swarm, they get shot at, they swarm some more, and usually it's a turn 3 that you see it break one way or the other. So yeah, I'd say Crix would be a good different faction to use as opposed to Trolls. The battle box is great. Like the whole army in a box that came out is a really good mix. Yeah, I think that's a really good way to go. So yeah, jump on that. Remember, those army in a box are going to be limited releases. So if you have any inkling at all that you want to get it, buy it right away. Because the worst case scenario, let's say you buy the Crix army in a box, you're like, you know what? Undead theme just doesn't do it for me. Well, it's at such a good discount, especially if you get it from an online. Let's say you get it from Discount Games. So normally the models are like 40% off, and they get like 30% off more because you went through Discount Games. Like, you can resell it and make a profit. So it's worth it getting it either way. Again, I got like some viewers here. Post up some questions, guys, and I'll answer yours. Philomus, you got a couple of these. Question number 1. How would you describe the current competitive meta? What factions and casters are the meta definers that require anti-tech or specific lists? Well, the number 1 boogeyman right now in the meta, of course, is Bradigus. You have to have a list that can deal with Bradigus. And then at the same time, the meta has been changing, of course, to counter Bradigus. And the number 1 thing you see coming because of this is Legion. Lots and lots of people are joining Legion right now in order to counter the Bradigus wave. And normally the big list you see there, either Thagrosh 2 or Veil 1. Veil 1 being, I think, the most popular of them. So you kind of want a list that can deal with Bradigus and can deal with Legion. So, you know, anti-hordes. But yeah, they're the 2 major ones out there. But of course, you got everything you have to always worry about too, right? Depending on your meta, all the big casters are still big. You know, you got your Denny 2, you got your Gorshade 3, you got your Haley 2, you got, you know, all your normal boogeymen from before for the really apex casters. But I think globally, the big two right now would be for factions, Circle and Legion, as they're trying to battle it out. And so really make sure that you're prepared for those two. Number two, how do you generate position terrain for a standard game? Normally, like when I'm doing my War Machine Wednesday, I have lots of terrain. Like really underneath this big table here is just bin after bin and bin of terrain. So I have a lot to pick from. So normally I'll just kind of like randomly take some things out. When it's I usually like trying to find a theme to the table. I don't like just random terrain. But the first thing I try to make sure I do is make sure it's not a mirror. Of course, you have to follow all the rules, like keeping the restricted terrain 5 inches away from flags and stuff. But you don't want it to be a mirror because you want it so that whoever takes the second turn that's picking the sides, that they have an advantage there. But of course, at the same time, you want to be fair. You don't want like one side empty and the other side all trenches and elevation and stuff, right? So you want it somewhat even, but at the same time, I find what I do is I'll make it so like, okay, this side has a good wall, but this side has a good forest. And then there's a piece of blocking terrain here that could either get in your way or hide behind. And then there's also this over here. So for the most part, I'm having like the same number of pieces of terrain on either side, but at the same time, I'm making sure that if you're a person picking sides, it's not like, oh, it doesn't matter, it's all the same, that there's actually like a tactical breakdown. It's like, oh, I think actually the elevation will matter more. So you want those options. Question number 3. What Horde faction would you recommend for a Menoth player? So as a Menoth player, you're used to playing something that's really stable, that's really like the move up kind of more slowly and carefully and, you know, being really resilient. So if you're looking for something that's more opposite to that, maybe that'd be more Legion, where you're playing more of the glass hammer. That's really the first one that comes to mind. Because Legion is more about the speed, and once they get in there, then, you know, they counterattacks usually really hurt your Legion. Whereas you have a lot of infantry in Menoth. Of course, you have all the beasts. So that's really true for all hordes. I could see Circle working as well, but I mean, Circle, a lot of times you see a lot more of a brick build, which is more like Menoth, you know, if you're ever doing Bradigus or Baldur 2. So really, I think Legion would be the biggest difference. Yeah, Legion. That's the one I go for a Menoth player. And this is the idea that you want something different, right? If you are a Menoth player trying to find kind of like the same thing on the other side, you know, then all of a sudden maybe you do want Circle. So it's all about what you're trying to get from the switch of game system. Kevin Delion, just wondering if ever played Morheim, thoughts on it. I've never played Morheim. I had a lot of offers back in the day of people who wanted to play, and it just never happened. I've watched a lot of Morheim either being played or being done on YouTube, and it looks like a lot of fun. It's just something I never really got into. Instead of doing that, I did Blood Bowl, and then that all fell apart. So yeah, if you like it, it's a great fun game, but it's not really the thing for me. We have Death Corpse Commissar that's here watching, and he says, will you be attending Lock and Load? And unfortunately not. For this year here, I was really saying at the start of the year, like, that's it. I'm going to Lock and Load. And then the wife said no. Because it turned out that weekend is our anniversary weekend, and I just could not make it fly. It just, you know, none of the usual tricks are like, oh, come on, we'll go to Seattle. Or, oh, come on, you can do like your women's night out, and then I'll do my boys' night out, and we'll get back together. Or, oh, we'll do our anniversary the next weekend. Like, nothing worked. So, unfortunately, as much as I really, 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 really want to go Lock and Load, I can't make it. So, I don't know. Maybe I still go. I'll fake my death. All I need to do is get a divorce, and I can go. Next one here from James Clark. Looking at the new army box sets that PP are putting out, I'm considering grabbing a Hordes faction to run alongside my Khador for War Machine. I'd be wanting something that's a different playstyle to Khador and prefer a Beast Heavy. Any suggestions? So Beast Heavy and Hordes would be either really Legion. Legion is what you want. Circle can also be Beast Heavy. especially if you're looking at like the World War and stuff like that. But really, Legion is really the one that's like all about the beasts. And if we're trying to find something that's different from Cato, again, that's like slow and steady and reliable type thing, and then we're going to put an axe in your face when we get there, it's more about, again, Legion is more like the glass hammer. We're like, haha, I got you in the face, and I hope you aren't strong enough to hit me back. So yeah, Legion. A lot of questions about these, like trying to switch factions. Interesting. Lord 17C again saying, you mentioned wanting to get into shape during your last Paintisode. Do you think you might do one of those group get in shape together things, similar to mini wargaming and the others have done it? I don't think so. I mean, first of all, I don't think I'd be very good at it. I have asthma, so I mean, if I'm out there trying to really like show the good way to lose weight, I'll also be a wheezing bastard and sounding like a freak. So I really don't think that's the way to go. Yeah. Hopefully it's the thing where eventually, as you see me whenever I stand up to get things, it won't be like big gut. You'll start going it down. But I got to figure out something. It has more personal to do with work and stuff and getting on permanent. And then I have like a health account and all this stuff. But in due time, I've been making small things already where, not trying to eat after 8 and trying to cut back and pop and stuff like that. So little things now, and clearly if they don't do good enough, I'll have to step them up. All right. Daz 25 Ace. I think it's the first time I've ever seen a comment from you. Hello, Malorian. Hope things are going well. We all miss you here in Fantasyland. My question is, with the rumors of 9th having to be a skirmish game, will you have a look into it? What would you need to have for you to give it a go? Really, if it's a skirmish game, I think that's going to be dead in the water because I'm playing a skirmish game. So that won't really pull me away. What I need Fantasy to be is a really solid rules for block combat that you used to see back in 7th and 6th. It was funny. Just a little while ago, my son gave me the movement trays I had for the Welsh Legion. Where'd it go? Where I used to run little blocks of like 3x3, and that's because they used to be great. Because with my Empire, I could do like little counter charges, and it actually mattered, right? The way that you did your blocks and counter charge and stuff meant something. And now it's just like, no, whoever has the biggest Death Star. So they have to change the rules so that the Death Star mentality dies, and that would be the biggest thing for bringing me back. That's more about the troops. Because, I mean, really, if you look around at all the different games, what does Fantasy really have going for it? Well, it's not the big flashy models. That's 40K. It's the block combat. So they have to focus on that. But either way, when 9th comes out, I will be looking at it. Will it draw me in? We'll have to see. We'll check again. So from Vili Amala, this is not a question, sorry. I wanted to say how fondly I remember Brawler Bash 2013, which you, Once Bitten, and Anthony attended together, sitting in front of my laptop in a small northern town of Finland. Oh, cool. I eagerly followed your adventures and anxiously waited for bat reps to be posted up. I think I was rooting for your orcs and goblins a bit, though all 3 of you were cool. That was a golden age of Warhammer. And man, that was so fun. And I'm still waiting for that type of thing to happen here in War Machine, right? For it to click. I mean, really, it's my own fault because I'm not going to these big cons. But I mean, for all the guys, say like you watch and you see from the podcast with like, Chain Attack and News on Minis and Oz Machine and Crippled Systems and whatever, where they always get together and they go to these big events and they talk about their games against each other. They do tournaments between the podcasts. They do like multi-combined podcasts where they're like mixing up the cast. Like that's the stuff that I missed doing when I was with Fantasy. The thing that we had there with Once Bitten, Anthony and myself, that was awesome. And the times I was there, Brawler Bash with them, that really was like the golden age and my favorite time of Warhammer because like, wow, here we are, there's guys who love Warhammer and we're all doing it together. And I'm still waiting for that to happen with War Machine. I'm trying to make those connections, but it's not really there yet. really, I'm sure if I could start going to these bigger events, I mean locally it's kind of happening. But man, I'd be loving to make more of those contacts where the YouTube channels are really working together. But it's not just really the way that the YouTube channels work for War Machine, right? Where normally we're bouncing ideas off each other and doing global campaigns. You know, that's just not how it's done on the War Machine side. So I do really miss that, and do really miss Brawler Bash. When I was listening to Once Bitten saying, "Oh man, it won't be the same without Malorian here," I was like, "Oh, tugging at those heartstrings where I want to be there, but money." So, and unfortunately, this year, for just to explain that, instead of going to one of these big foreign events, I bought a bajillion frontline gaming mats. So decisions were made, and I have to live by them now. All right, we have Hufferu812 saying, "I just started Cephalix. I also play Kador, and I love them. I know they are limited in selection and probably will be for some time, but have you seen any attorneys? I'm thinking about taking Cephalix to an Ohio qualifier in April. Thanks for any information and keep up the great work." Cephalix are rare, really rare. The biggest problem with Cephalix right now is that there's only one caster. So if you're a person who just loves that look of Cephalix, sorry, you can't take them to a tournament because you need a second list, and then all of a sudden you have to try and take whatever mercs you want to pair it with. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Cephalix and a double Earthbreaker would do just fine, but again, you have to be one of those people that are fine mixing up that merc look. And so there's very, very, very few people that are going for Cephalix. In fact, in the entire local meta here, by local I'll say Alberta, I know of one player who went to Cephalix, which I was actually happy about because before that he was playing Kador and he was doing Butcher 3 and he was a nightmare, but he went to Cephalix and, you know, Thexus and all that stuff. But yeah, it's really just him so far, and you know he does well. You know, when he plays, he had a new child, so of course that takes a lot of time away from you. But it's one of those things, like you say, where there's just not that many models out there, and so there's not really a lot of different ways you can play the army. So for anyone who's competitive that knows about Cephalix, like, oh yeah, okay, it's Cephalix. I know the one type of list you have to take, so I know how to counter it. So I really do hope that they do expand the Cephalix. They're an interesting idea, and all they need to do is add one caster, right? Add one caster, and all of a sudden I can see a lot more people playing Cephalix because then also you can take them, right? It's just like as if, okay, right now you see very few all-dwarf players. However, a lot of times you see them where there's at least one dwarf list just because they're so good. However, what I'm trying to get at is that there is only one dwarf caster. I'm sure a lot of people are like, it's just kind of like a silly side thing. Again, there's only so many tricks you can put into it. So, yeah. I mean, if nothing else, if in your meta, Cephalix is super, super rare, which seems to be everywhere, use them because you can do the Dark Horse thing, right? People won't know what to expect, and then all of a sudden it's like you got the feet that's moving things, and he's TKing and all the other stuff, and you can really catch people off guard. But again, that could be a big investment, and then once you do that big surprise, then they kind of know what's going on. So what else can I say? Antoine Rosignol. Sorry, I'm going to be butchering all these names. I need advice for playing a VC in fantasy. Any builds, resources, websites. How do I plan a competitive tournament army list? If you don't have a lot of experience with vampire accounts, general army list building tips would be appreciated. Thanks and keep up the cool videos. That's a really hard one to talk about because I have been out of it for a while now. I know you want to go with the army of undead so you can mix things, but really it's really hard to say past that. Even the website, I was trying to think of what the website's name is because I know there is a website just for vampire accounts, and I can't remember it right now. So really sorry, I can't really answer your question well at all. I can't remember the website. I mean, I'm sure if you went to Warseer and asked what the site was, they could tell you there. But as far as how you should build your list, take Nagash and take archers and take skullpults and just raise up things, and or go all ethereal and go, you don't have enough magic weapons. I don't know. The whole event, I was a big time Vampire Accounts player, and Nagash is just, that's probably the one area that makes me absolutely upset with fantasy. You know, when I left it, most of it was like, well, you know, I love fantasy, but I'm sad to see it go. The whole Nagash thing is dumb, and his rules are stupid. So go with Nagash if you want to win. Raise up free troops. Then finally, looks like there's a longer one. We have ZWolf123 who says, "Hey, Malorian, last week popped into Paintisode asking about armies. I pulled the trigger and actually went with Signar. Hey, anyways, I am wanting to do an undead Signar. I think we talked about that last time. Krikstar, if you will. Trying to keep it mostly limited to colors and not conversions because I'm not quite sure how much I convert on a budget and don't want to worry about my models not being accepted at tourneys. Remember, the rules for conversions is that you can't be stealing anyone's IP or whatever, so you don't want to be making them, what would be an I thing, like you don't want to have like Skeletor, right? Stuff like that they'll say no to, but as long as the majority of the model is the original model, and you can tell what it has, like, you know, if it's supposed to have a sword, give it a sword, right? There's a lot of conversions you can do that are tournament legal. And so what you let's finish the question here. What are your thoughts on a cool undead scheme? I'm thinking about doing a classic blue, but mostly chipped and rusted off, or perhaps 40k Nurgle-esque look with greens and browns. What are your thoughts? Any advice on new player for Signar? So that kind of gets a little bit deeper there. So what I would do if I was taking Signar and I was trying to convert it to be undead and make it more Crix-like, the first thing you could do is really mix in those Crix bits. So you could go in and you could buy a box of Banes and buy maybe a Pistol Wraith and whatever, and then you can start bit swapping. And I mean, you don't need to buy just the actual box. You can always go and buy the bits too, right? Go to the Privateer Press site, buy whatever bits you want and do that. However, if you really want to do it on a budget, I'd be going actually to not Privateer Press, Games Workshop, and buying a box of, say, like their new Vampire Account skeletons and getting those bits. And then all of a sudden you can be adding, just do like a head swap, right? Take off the head, put in a skeleton, and you can do it that way. If you really want to do it on a budget and make it so that you're basically doing no conversions whatsoever, you really then have to do it through the paint. So instead of doing like a blue and tarnish type thing, I'd be going like straight to blacks and grays. Your whole idea of going Nurgle-esque could really work. Just know that painting technique can get kind of complicated as you're trying to take a face that really is a natural face and then trying to make it look rotted. That can actually be a little bit more difficult than it sounds. I mean, of course, you know, just give them like pale skin so they look dead, and that's easy enough. Then just make sure there's dark underneath the eyes, stuff like that, right? Sunken in eyes type thing, or glowing eyes. You can always do that too. But either way, there's a lot of ways you can do it, and I'd be very interested to see what it looks like after. So keep me in the loop. As far as a new player getting into Signar, embrace your inner pew-pew. Signar is all about the shooting faction. It's what they do best, so embrace it. But at the same time, don't feel like that's all you have to do. Casters like Sturgis, like Striker 2, you know, they can get in there and they can really mix it up in melee as well. As I've shown, you can do like a Crix Swarm style list very well with Signar. So, you know, have fun with it. But in the beginning, realize that most of Signar is all stuff with guns, and realize it's going to be more of a shooting faction. But at the same time, realize that when you're making your list, that you can't just go 100% gun line, because if you do, you're going to lose on scenario. So you're going to need some pieces that can get up there and they can stall scenario and do whatever else you need to be done to stay in the game while you keep on shooting. Last part of his question, also I saw previews after this video of you pre-beard. Keep the beard, it's good for you. Yeah, I've had the beard for a long time now. Man, I mean, the only reason why I need to shave it off now is if I had to, and that'd be really if I work in the oil industry, and so if I had to do an audit at a site where you have to be shaved to be on site because then you can do the gas mask and all that stuff, then I'd have to shave it off. And man, I'd look like, 10 years younger, but probably too also not all that great. I like my goatee. I like it. So don't be too worried about you trying to shave that off. Either way, I've been just rambling on. I haven't been really painting at all. So you're still here in silver. I should actually get at least 3 colors on. I got 5 minutes left. Unfortunately, nobody's been really posting many questions here on the side, but I'm going to make sure this guy has 3 colors at least so that in the back of my mind, I can see like, oh, I made him tournament legal. So we'll take our red. I always make the eyes red. And then I always make like little magical, power sources red as well. So on his shield here, he has all the spots that are supposed to be red, so we'll do that. No charge for you. And I actually am looking, I don't know why I haven't run this list yet. I mean, when I bought the additional Centurions to run this list, I was so pumped to run it. And I remember now what killed it. I was putting my guys together. And the idea was going to be Darius and then 6 of these Centurions. And it wasn't until I was building the very last one that I realized, wait a second, doesn't Darius have a very cool tier he can run where he can take a lot of heavies? And it turns out that if you want to do that, you have to take all these Sword Knights. And if you do that, you can't actually get in 6 Centurions. It would be 5 Centurions and then also a Hammersmith. But then I get in Sword Knights and all this cool stuff too. And it's weird. Like, the list is actually just literally better. I'm basically trading 1 Centurion to be going down to a Hammersmith and then getting a bunch of infantry as well. But that little change was like, oh, it's not what I dreamed. I can't do it now. So I'm hoping that once I get these guys painted, I'll come back to them. I just know, too, that if ever I was to drop this, my 6 Centurions, I'd be up against, like, Cricks or something. It'd just be like, Bane's charge, you're all dead. Either way, there's the red on there now. Then we'll get something else on there, and then we'll be happy. I'll be happy. I wish I had a way that I could... Nope. Always feels that whenever I'm trying to quickly do these models that I screw something up. And I just did there as I got paint all over. But it doesn't matter. We want to finish this. Normally I finish a model in every single Paintisode. I'm not finishing today, but I want to at least be at the spot where if somebody asks me, I can say I made a tournament legal model. And I mean, tournament legal is such a loose thing too, right? Most tournaments don't even care about being painted. Anyway, I've been rambling on about that enough. I have a tournament this weekend that I'm really looking forward to going to. It's going to be a massive tournament for being a local store, right? It's just a small local store here, but we're going to have like 30 people there. So that's pretty significant just for a small tournament. And the reason why it's so big is that we are getting very close here to the end of the Alberta tournament circuit, and everybody wants to get those points so that they can be making the invitational. Currently, I am in the numbers where I will be going to the invitational, but man, I don't want to fall behind. And what would be nice is if I could win one of the auto invites, just so it's off my mind, right? So it's nothing I have to worry about. Either way, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of the question where, oh, there's Malorian. He didn't make it onto the WTC team. And I'd like to go there and kind of show, even though I'm not vindictive and I'm not angry, I kind of want to come there and I want to do well, right? I mean, if I don't make the WTC like I didn't, and then I go to this next tournament and I just flop, right? I just do crap. They'll be like, oh yeah, okay, it makes sense. It's a good thing he wasn't on the team. So, I want to be going to this tournament and doing well. So like, okay, you know what? Maybe he'll be good for next year. Or maybe I can get so that there's a point like, oh man, maybe we should have had him on the team. But and also, of course, there's the thing where my brother will be there too. It's been a long time since me and my brother have been at the same tournament because of how he's in a different city now. And of course, there's quite a bit of competition between me and my brother. He just won a tournament with his cricks. He's really good with his cricks. Luckily, Signar really loves shooting up cricks, but he's been running a very mean Gorshade 3 list and doing very, very well. So it might be me that I have to face that. We'll have to see. If that's a problem, when I'm looking at this and trying to say, like, okay, who are the top players who are going? Because normally when you go to a tournament, that's what you want to say. It's like, okay, who are the top players who are going? What are they going to take? And how am I going to counter it? Well, at this event here, there are a lot of good players going, running a lot of different factions. Like Convergence will be a big issue. Legion will be a big issue. Circle will be a big issue. Crix will be a big issue. Menoth will be a big issue. Like there's a lot of very top level players who are going to be at this. There will be multiple people there who made the Team Canada, right? So that level of player. One of the players I'd like to get a little bit of revenge on is Bryn, because I just recently played him and didn't do too well against him. But unfortunately, the pairing I'm taking, I don't think would do that well against him. So maybe I'll try going for dodge. We'll dodge him. That'll be my game plan against him. Either way, we are at an hour. As far as painting my model went, hey, we got silver with red and black. It's legit. So unfortunately, I was hoping to get more, but I had a lot of questions to read. Hopefully you guys got lots of painting done while watching. As always, I love hearing what you painted while you watched. And yeah, we'll catch you next time. See ya.